Welcome everyone to this month's edition of the Fire Safe Marin Wildfire Webinars. My name is Rich Shortall. I'm the Executive Coordinator of Fire Safe Marin. As we all know, wildfire season is upon us. Unfortunately, California has experienced over 8,000 wildfires already this year, and we've burned 3.7 million acres plus. Our neighbor right to the north of us, Sonoma and Napa, are currently experiencing another severe wildfire. We wish them the best, and it shows how vulnerable we all are. Tonight, we're going to speak about how neighbors can help neighbors, how our communities can get organized, and how we all can come together to help us be better prepared to deal with this wildfire threat. Let's take a look at some of the topics that we've covered in the webinar series. So, the first webinar dealt with living with fire in Marin County. That's available on our YouTube channel. That was followed by a really great presentation on evacuation and warning, again available there. Tonight we're talking about community organizing. But coming up, we'll be talking about how wildfires burn, sort of fire behavior 101. 2 sessions on how to harden your home to prevent it from burning. Open space vegetation management. Zone 0, the critical first 5 feet around your home, an area that we really need to pay attention to. Fire smart landscaping, maintenance and tips, defensible space, environmental best practices, and fire insurance. So we hope you will join us, and some of the questions you may have will definitely be answered in future webinars. We also hope that you will subscribe to our newsletter so you can keep current on all these things. And also our website has a lot of really good information that will help you get better prepared. Tonight's presentation is not meant to be a lecture. It's meant to be participatory. We hope you'll take advantage of that by asking questions of the guests and the hosts. You can do that. You'll see at the bottom of the screen is the Q&A button. You click that and then you type in the questions you want to ask. Sometimes we can respond to that in writing just to you right away. Some of them we'll save and let our panelists respond to them. And then sometimes, if we can't get it tonight, we will have an answer posted on our website that you can view at a future date. If you're on Facebook and you have a question, you can post the question to info@firesafemarin.org. And of course, the webinar itself, once we're finished, will be posted on our YouTube channel. We hope you go there. You can see previous webinars, and there's a lot of very exciting educational material. Lots of videos on home hardening, fire smart landscaping, etc., that are really worth checking out. Tonight's presenters are first John Hansen. John Hansen is one of our 2 Firewise liaisons at Fire Safe Marin. He's worked with many people to help get their sites organized, and he's sort of an expert on helping neighbor and getting us organized at the community level. Our second presenter tonight is Belle Cole. Belle is a community organizer and a climate change activist. We're really excited to have her. She's going to speak to you about a new organization in Marin called Ecologically Sound Practices, which is an amalgam of a number of different environmental groups designed to help all of us with fire safety. She'll explain that in much greater detail later on. So with all that said, I'd like to turn it over to John Hansen. And John, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Rich. And yeah, it's really nice to see everybody here tonight. Actually didn't expect a big turnout because of the competition we have, but I'm really glad that you have joined us here. You know, you don't really need to look very far to see how vulnerable our communities are to the wildfires that are raging up and down the coast. All the way from Southern California, all the way to British Columbia. It's easy for us to get overwhelmed in this situation. And so really what we need to do to deal with this is to turn to our major resource, and that is our communities. Our communities then can do a lot. We can do a lot with them right now. But first, I want to say a few other things. But, you know, there's opportunities and steps that we can take coming up, and I'll be getting into those shortly. Let's start off with a reality check on what's happening here. Our current situation is a direct result of climate change. And because of that, we have new records now in California. They're ominous new records. On a normal, let's call that historically normal wildfire season, we would generally have about 300 yards of, 300 acres burned. But this year, we have 3.7 million and growing. That's 12 times the normal for this time of year. And the year has just begun as far as the peak season for our Diablo winds and our Santa Ana winds. And those are the usually strong, very dry, and warm winds that come out of the Northeast. And that's what sparks the majority of our major wildfires. So the fires are one thing, but in addition to the fires, we have the smoke that aches our lungs and burns our eyes. And then we have the ash that builds up outside. We can see that in the morning when we go out and often have to clean it off our car's windshield before we leave in the morning. And on top of that, then we have the PSPS, or the Public Safety Power Shutoff System from PG&E. Fortunately, here at Marin, we've managed to avoid those so far this year, but the year is still young, and we'll see what happens as the rest of the autumn unfolds. The Woodward Fire in West Marin was our largest fire since the 1995 Mount Vision fire. And what it's done has, it's created evacuation warnings and alerts. The warnings have gone on for, sometimes for weeks for some people on West Marin. It's all, the fires also burned many old growth trees and forests in the West. And it's left in this indelible dark spot on our beautiful landscape in West Marin. So how many of us though have responded? You know, I've been surprised to see how many people have actually responded to this by signing up for Alert Marin and Nixle. Many have created evacuation checklists, evacuation plans for themselves and their family, and go bags for everybody. And some of us have gone as far as fire smart landscaping. And at least we've taken care of pruning the trees, the underbrush between the underneath the trees, and some of our worst fire-prone vegetation that's around the house. And then some of us have even installed some of the new vents that occlude sparks from the house and embers. And these vents can be they can be down below in the crawl space, or they can be up above on the in the dormers and elsewhere. And we've also managed to screen our decks, the decks that we have on our hillsides. We screen out down beneath those, and then we can also see that some people have actually, excuse me, some people have actually changed their roofs to fire-resistant roofs, and it's amazing what has been done. But you know, what about the people that what we call the later adopters to the program? These are people that, by and large, they either are resistant to doing this, but more likely, they're the folks that don't have the ability, the wherewithal, with health issues, with physical issues, or with their financial issues, to be able to actually participate in the community programs to make their homes safer. And I know of neighbors near me, and you probably do too, the neighbors that are, especially in these times of COVID, that are home alone. They're unable to understand exactly what's going on and exactly what they need to do. They might be frightened and alone. And what are we going to do for those people? They're part of our community. So how do we come together? How do we come together as a community then to help these people? Right now, it's sort of easy to see, or at least it's not difficult to see, that the better prepared that a community is, the safer that we all will be. And you can take that to the bank. And that's sort of the bottom line for much of the presentation tonight. So this is what we call neighbors helping neighbors. This is how we can do it. So Jen, if you'd like to show the short video, we'll explain what I'm talking about.
Hi there.
Oh, hello.
I'm Nancy. I'm the local Firewise leader for our neighborhood, and I'm going around the neighborhood today and just letting people know that we're around and that we're trying to help our neighborhood be safer for wildfire by giving tips and education about how we can make our gardens and our homes safer for wildfire.
Oh, thank you. I'm pretty good about that. I like to plant natives, and I'm out here every day gardening. I have a neighbor down the street who I'm pretty worried about. It's really overgrown. I don't see her taking care of her yard, and I'm concerned that it's going to be a problem for our neighborhood.
All right. Well, I think I'll go down there and introduce myself to her. Thank you very much.
Oh,
And
that'd be great.
you know, you're doing a fantastic job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good one.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Nancy. I'm the leader of the local Firewise site for the neighborhood,
Okay.
and we're all about helping each other fire harden our homes and our gardens.
Oh, well, I could sure use help. I mean, I don't know what you can do, but it's such a mess down there.
Oh, that would be wonderful because we are looking to come together and help out with some gardens that need some extra love and care. And is that something
Wow.
that we could do?
That would be fantastic.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
'Cause-
When do you do that?
Well, we try to do it every Saturday or every other Saturday, or maybe
Okay.
just when people can make it. And some people might be able to show up on Saturday, and I think we can pull it together. Would that be good?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So 10 o'clock on Saturday?
Wonderful. Yeah. I'll see you there.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey Ronan, I think Finn's gonna need a walk. Can you take him?
Oh, yeah. Hey guys, this is an alert from Alert Marin. There's a fire in the area. The embers shower could happen anytime with these high winds. We need to go.
Okay, let's get going. It's a red flag day, so I've got everything right there inside the door. We've got the to-go bag. I think I've got my glasses. I've got medicine, ID. You two get the puppy in the kennel and load him in the car.
Let's make sure Miss Benson, our neighbor, also has gotten the alert and that she's aware that we have to get going.
Great. Let's get our masks. Get long sleeve shirts, hats. Let's get going.
Hi.
Hey, Miss Benson, we just got an alert from Alert Marin. There's a fire in the area, and
Where?
we're gonna get some ember showers. It's right up on the hill.
Oh my
It's time to
God.
go. Can you get your important papers
Yes.
and your medicines or anything else you need?
I don't have a car.
You could fit in with us. Why don't you come with us then?
Okay. I'll be ready in a few minutes.
All right, sounds
okay.
good.
Do you want me to meet you here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go,
I'll be
go.
back in a few
I'll-
minutes. Thank
I'll
you.
go.
All right, well, thank you very much, Jen. That is a prepared neighborhood that does that. A prepared neighborhood is resilient. And resilient neighborhood, that means that they're able to handle situations, incidents beyond the day-to-day. And then they're able to recover from that and often end up stronger in the long run than they were in the beginning. So resilient neighborhoods. Now there's a program that's well established here in Marin that encourages local solutions to problems such as the wildfires that are threatening us. And it's called the Firewise USA program. Firewise USA is sponsored by the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, and it's sponsored locally by Fire Safe Marin in conjunction with your local fire department. So local solutions for provide local responsibility for preparing your homes for wildfires. That's what Fire Safe Marin, and that's what Firewise neighborhoods can do for you. So Firewise neighborhoods can come together to start. And when they do start, the first thing you really need to do is to contact your neighbors, find out who's there, to find out who needs what and who has what, who has the liabilities and the needs, and who has the resources that can help out. Often the larger neighborhoods will have block captains that can distribute the work out. Instead of seeing a lot of people all at once, the block captains can see fewer, 10 or 12 or maybe up to 20 people at a time. And this way they can send out literature, they can plan for evacuations, plan for chipper days, and other parts of the Firewise program. So when neighbors come together to work, what I suggest is to, if you're doing this for the first time, start small, start light, start your program around fun. Organize your program around social events so that fun and people enjoy themselves doing what they're doing. And then when people finally remember what it's like to actually help people and to have a good time doing it, then we can begin to take on the bigger jobs. So communities working together. What happens there when people see that, especially the people that are resistant, then they can, they actually begin to start joining the process. With Firewise and people actually joining into Firewise program and getting involved in the program, there's people that are early adopters and there's people that are late adopters. And we can't really judge them. It's all we can do is accept that some people are later than others and just leave it at that. So what I'd like to do then is to show you another video here about some excuse me, about what some of our Firewise leaders have to say about this.
We have a resident
sharing green cans.
Block captains would be.
You can't do everything.
It's more fun to do things in a community, even if we're not doing it at the same time in the same place.
How does working as a community help improve fire safety?
You can't do everything. You can work on your own property and do everything you need, vegetation management, house hardening, and then if your neighbors don't know what to do or are unaware of the whole process, you're still vulnerable. So when you work together as a neighborhood, you're able to learn how to do it and what to do, and everybody becomes jointly embarked on the same project. And by forming a community, we've really gotten to care about each other in a whole different way. So it becomes, issues come up that are way more than fire. The PG&E blackouts, other events have come up, and we have the database, we're in touch with each other, we can communicate and make sure we're safer that way.
A Firewise community is all about residents reducing wildfire risk. So that's what we're all about. And that makes everybody safer in the neighborhood, you and your neighbors. And so the community building and the community engagement is critically important for a Firewise community. And the other thing is that the two things that we're focusing on this year is fuel reduction and emergency preparation. They go hand in hand.
I also noticed a very surprising element about forming a Firewise community, and that is that even people who aren't actively members of our group, they might be in a nearby neighborhood or even in our neighborhood but not participating. Once they see us start doing the work, it's a process of modeling. All of a sudden, without us saying anything, they're doing the work themselves. And areas that were completely overgrown are within a month or two suddenly getting clearer. And you can see that they're aware that this is an issue, and they're taking it on board and doing it on their own initiative. So that has been a very gratifying area for just seeing how people are responding to the whole neighborhood at work. So.
Can you give an example of neighbor helping neighbor?
We have a resident who lives alone, who had quite a bit of juniper in her front yard, and she wanted to get it removed. But of course, she couldn't do the work herself. So a group of men in the neighborhood got together and took it all out and cleared it for her. And it was just touching to see examples of that. One of the other things I noticed when we had our chipper service, there was an awful lot of help going on between neighbors with either helping them prepare for it, helping them get their stacks ready. So anytime you do a community event, the community comes together and helps one another.
We organized 2 volunteer days, and on each occasion we got 20 of our neighbors to volunteer. And we worked along the 2 main evacuation routes in our neighborhood, clearing vegetation, cutting it back, improving sight lines, and helping neighbors who I think had not focused on the roadside on their properties for a very long time. And by doing that, we got a tremendous amount of goodwill from people who hadn't been able to participate but were thrilled to see the difference. We were also able to identify a couple of neighbors who were older and hadn't the ability to really address their own gardens. And we identified a couple of areas with significant growth of juniper, and we arranged for them to have a lightning grant from PG&E so that they were able to get a contractor in and cleared the property. And that was because we knew them. That was because we knew that they were anxious about this but not really able to deal with it. Also, we were able to share tools. We help each other. We borrowed a chainsaw. Other people are sort of sharing things. So I think all in all, people have become way more neighborly and helping each other.
What is the biggest challenge to your Firewise site?
Well, obviously, I think the biggest challenge is apathy and motivation. And how do you help people raise the priority of taking care of their own vegetation to the point where they actually do something? And it takes a concerted effort to get people's attention. One way is, I guess you'd say, by awareness of fires. The Santa Rosa fires certainly motivated people, but that's temporary. And so keeping it in the forefront of people's minds requires repetition, and it also requires the sense that this is something that we all do. So it's a sort of a lengthy, ongoing process to convince people that this is worth doing, and that not only that their neighbors are doing it too, and that maybe they should think about it just because their neighbors are starting to do this. So it's a community awareness kind of situation.
It is making sure that everybody gets the information that we want to get to them about a chipper day or a broom pull, a group broom pull, which we have done, not since the pandemic, but we only have about half the residents in Cascade Canyon on our mailing list now. And I think that until we have everybody, we're not doing what's possible. So it's improving, but it's slow.
The number one thing for us has been, and continues to be, recruiting volunteers to act as street captains. And it's interesting to me because we get such positive feedback from neighbors anytime we do a community event, and everybody's pleased with the benefits of the program, but then they always stop short of volunteering. So we have currently 16 street captains, but we need double that amount. As far as for the street captains, I don't believe that they feel overburdened by any of it, because what we've asked them to do and what they've been wonderful at is be a communication link out to the neighborhood, and they're very engaged with their own little street. So they may have anywhere between 12 or 15 homes, and so they, just like myself, you expand and become more friendly with all of your neighbors, and so whenever we have something that we want to communicate, we're able to push messages out to the 16 street captains, who then can engage on a more personal level with their neighborhood on the topics.
The biggest challenge faced by our Firewise site, and it's shared by, I'm sure, everybody, is COVID-19. It has really restricted our movements, and we've had many delays in supplies and materials, and just missing the social interaction. But despite that, we've learned to adapt. So we just pivoted and we created a website. So we spent a few months with Maggie's help, and we have a webmaster down the street. He volunteered to, he said, I will build you a website, and they will come. So what we're trying to do now is direct a lot of traffic to the website.
Is it difficult to get and to maintain the Firewise certification?
The hardest part is the initial outreach. If you have it on your mind you want to form a community and you haven't done this kind of work before, it can be a little intimidating to reach out. And I think that's the hardest step, is to reach out and find some like-minded neighbors who are also worried about it. The way we did it was we simply put a notice on next door saying, hello neighbor, are you concerned about wildfire in your neighborhood? And suggested a meeting time. And the next step is, having got a few neighbors involved, is we did some door knocking. Obviously in the time of COVID, it's hard to do that. But you can leave information on people's doorknobs or doorsteps, and built our database. And that's really very important, because once you have your database, you have the people that you reach out to. They don't have to be the people who come to the meetings. They just are people who are interested in the topic. And then once we're all connected, we started the process, and it was very straightforward.
It is not difficult at all to get certified and to maintain that certification. It'll be a breeze, because you've got terrific fire department personnel supporting you, and they're at your back.
Oh, I think maintaining the certification is not difficult. Once the ball starts rolling, sure, there's an initial effort to get people's interest and attention, but there will always be people who are interested in supporting this, and so maintaining it is not difficult. And furthermore, the fire department and Fire Safe Marin are both great resources, and other Firewise leaders are more than happy to join in and provide advice. So it's really just a question of convincing yourself that you would like to do this in your community, because there's plenty of support and it's really not very hard to get started.
The Firewise community is a way of getting people to address a problem. A give you an example of how receptive in general people are. When we proposed this Measure C last March for a tax, there were 3 other taxes on the ballot. Those 3 lost. Measure C, which funds wildfire prevention and supports all of this effort, it passed with 71% of the vote. So people looking at Paradise, looking at the Napa and Santa Rosa fires, were ready to say, yeah, it's possible we could have a fire here. Let's do something about it. And it's not onerous, and maybe if we work together, we can figure out what to do best. And I found people, you see all over the place, it says no trespassers, stay away, angry dog, or something like that. I go up, knock on the door anyhow, and almost always they come and say, "Who are you?" And I'll say, "I'm a neighbor, and I'm with the Cascade Canyon Firewise group." And the facial expression changes completely to friendly, a big smile. They've got thoughts, they've got ideas, they've got questions, they've got whatever else. And so I have found being associated with Firewise a great reception everywhere.
Excellent. Well, I really hope that everybody found this this little video inspirational. Certainly, we work with these people day in and day out at Fire Safe Marin, and we are totally inspired by the hard work and dedication that they put into their Firewise programs, and we're impressed with the results that they have come up with so far too. So, how do we actually start and manage a Firewise program in our neighborhood? So let's look at really the first thing, as I mentioned before, what you need to do is to reach out to your neighbors. And this is really the hardest part of the whole thing, is to reach out to your neighbors and to develop your contact list. But actually starting your Firewise program, number one is to establish a board or committee for your Firewise team. And this can be the mover and the shakers, the people that are the workers, the spark plugs in your neighborhood. And then the second thing is to create a wildfire risk form. It takes a little bit of assistance with it, and you'll get that assistance with your local fire department as well as with Fire Safe Marin. The third is to develop an action plan. Now, the action plan is based on the risk assessment primarily, but it does include a few other odds and ends. And again, you'll have plenty of assistance in filling this out and working that. It's an active plan, actually. It's something that you can use and work from based on the risks that you found. And then you need to conduct educational program, such as what we're doing right now. Reach out to your community with this, promote these programs, and then you can air them or re-air them, because these will be on YouTube, and use these as your educational program for the time being. And then there's a small investment that you need to make into Firewise. It amounts to about $25 per person per day, per year. But that's not money out of your pocket. There's a number of things that can contribute to that, including contractor costs, or the time that you put in is worth that $25 per hour too. And then you complete your application when everything is all done. And completing your application, again, you have all the help that you need in doing that. Well, thank you very much. Rich?
Great. Thanks very much, John. Really appreciate that presentation. And I think a lot of the questions that are being asked were responded to either by your presentation, or I think that the videos of those folks who are actually out there sort of on the front lines of the Firewise communities were very helpful. One common question, though, still is, we're in a time of COVID, so we can't interact in the same way we normally do. What are some of your suggestions for getting a Firewise site started, given the restrictions that go along with that?
Well, certainly COVID does present an additional challenge, a major challenge, to reaching out and connecting, having social events and so forth. But, we're adapting, we're learning about COVID, we're learning more all the time how to deal with this pandemic. So wearing your mask, keep your time of connection with other people relatively short, and keep your social distance. And even just wearing a bandana would be helpful, but you're better off wearing an actual mask. So these are the things that I would suggest, and then go about what you would normally do, but with fewer people, and just watch what you're doing with the COVID situation.
John, what about the door hanger campaign to help Firewise sites to make contact with people? Can you talk about that?
Okay, the door hanger campaign is actually underway right now. We're just about to deliver them. The door hangers, what they are is information that, especially in this time of COVID, that you can put on, you can, as a Firewise leader, a Firewise committee, or your block captains, can distribute these to the neighbors throughout the neighborhood and ask for contact information. So you don't actually have to have contact with the neighbor. You can leave that door hanger on in its place.
Great. And you mentioned a risk assessment and action plan. Are there like some samples or other ways to get help doing that? Because that might be kind of a struggle for some folks.
Well, the risk assessment, they do get assistance right from the get-go from FireSafe Marin. And we also like to include the local fire department, which is very important to establish and maintain that connection for every Firewise site. So they know what you're doing, you know what they're doing. They have specific interests and issues in your neighborhood. They know what's happening there. So it's important to really listen to what they have to contribute to the risk assessment. And then filling out the form, a fillable PDF form. It's actually quite simple.
Thanks, John. One last question, and I might take this one myself. A person is asking about, there are Firewise groups, and in some communities there are what they call neighborhood response groups. And the question was, are we trying to work together? Are we talking together? Are we communicating? And I can tell you, yes, we are in contact with the neighborhood response groups. In fact, there's a big meeting coming up October 6th. You'll hear more about how the two programs can fit together, and there'll be more talk about that in the future. We think they're very complementary, and again, a little bit off topic for tonight, but we definitely are working closely together. So I thank you, John, very much, and I'd like
thank you, Rich.
I would like to introduce our next speaker. And our next speaker's name is Belle Cole, an active community organizer here in Marin. She focuses a lot of her energy on galvanizing efforts to combat climate change. Belle was instrumental in drawing together Marin's environmental and climate communities to support the formation and work of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. She's now on the steering committee of an advisory group known as the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership, or ESP. The mission of this group of environmental activists and climate experts is to make sure that the resilience of the environment is protected and improved as the new Marin Wildfire Protection Authority, or Prevention Authority rather, carries out its fire prevention work. So that said, let me introduce Belle.
Hello?
You're good, Belle?
Oh, good. Can you hear me? I'm fine?
Yes.
It's a real pleasure to be part of this timely webinar series. And we're all here tonight because we're worried about the threat of wildfire that surrounds us now, and it's likely to get worse in the months and years ahead as climate change makes the seasons hotter, drier, and longer. We've never seen anything like it. Jen, the slide, please. Okay. So this happened in August, two weeks in August, all this happened. The fire tornado north of Tahoe, 130-degree record heat in Death Valley, said to be the hottest temperature ever reliably recorded. Dry thunderstorms with over 11,000 lightning strikes that ignited 300 wildfires. A blood red sun, black skies, orange, flakes falling from the sky, covering everything with white ash, massive evacuations from Sonoma. Just think of what's going on now from Sonoma and from Napa, rolling blackouts. So that stands for itself. And so these ghastly scenes all bear links to climate change and climate solutions. Scientists expect them to recur more frequently as global warming continues to raise temperatures and dry the landscape. As California Governor Newsom said recently, climate change is real. If you are a denier about climate change, come to California. So that's the context. We know effective, we can now take the slide away. We know effective fire mitigation must take a broad view of the situation, tackling immediate fuel threats while protecting the long-term health of our environment. Fortunately, here in Marin, we have the expertise and leadership to make this happen. Voters, through, as mentioned before, through passage of Measure C, put in place the Marin Wildfire Protection Authority, a JPA designed to develop and implement a comprehensive wildfire prevention, education, and emergency preparedness plan. And the ESP is part of it. As Rich mentioned, the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership is a collaboration between the fire authorities and climate and environmental organizations of Marin. And their job is to define best management practices to carry out the wildfire prevention plans and other recommendations on specific projects. And it serves us all. It provides resources for the community. ESP has broad-based membership, and that's what makes it important, including specialists on native plants, gardening, composting, carbon sequestration, tree services, waste management, and policy leaders. There are over 70 people who participate. So nearly all of Marin's environmental organizations are represented, and ESP is open to including others. So the partnership highlights the talent within our own community and the importance of working together to achieve common goals in a very extraordinary way. The ESP partnerships allows a forum to provide, these are not yet the slides, to provide expertise about ecologically sound practices and to bring questions and concerns to the table. And that's something you can all do. And to develop solutions across areas of expertise. So the group has met several times, and it's a large group, and it's now broken down into 3 subject matter committees, all of which have both the professionals, fire professionals, and environmental representation, all these committees. So one is called the Vegetation Management and Habitat Prevention Committee, and it's interested in developing best management practices for fuel reduction programs in the wildlands, providing subject matter expertise and advice for project development, and ensuring environmental regulatory compliance. CEQA is one area that they're working on. The second committee is called the Carbon Resource Management Committee that I chair, and it's focused on managing green waste and other means of conserving carbon. A biomass recovery study endorsed by Drawdown Marin is an ESP project that looks at the best way to use organic material, such as branches, leaves, small trees, and underbrush that is being removed to prevent fires or otherwise, and to use it for good. And it can be converted to mulch, compost, bioenergy, biochar, engineered wood products. We're going to be testing that out in the study. And it absolutely has to reduce greenhouse gases and ensure carbon sequestration and reduce methane in landfills. These are the kinds of solutions that ESP wants to advance. And the third committee is called Defensible Space Team, and it works on providing best practices for landscaping around homes. The group addresses fire sport landscaping, the value of native plants, wise gardening, habitat for wildlife and pollinators. The committee is putting together guidelines for best practices that will be used by home inspectors, gardening services, and nurseries to help residents make their properties part of the Firewise landscape. An example is that this committee met recently and broke into subgroups, one on habitat, one on fire-safe landscaping, and one on maintenance, which is coming up with a brochure for landscapers. Each of these subject matter committees will be called upon by the MWPA's Technical Advisory Committee to offer insights and recommendations about work to be done in priority areas. So what does ESP partnership mean to you personally and to the broader Marin community? Most of you haven't heard of it, so this is probably your first time. But think about it. If you share concerns about the environment, climate change, the protection of biodiversity, carbon sequestration, many other related problems, the ESP partnership assures that these values are represented in the thinking behind the mitigation work you see, and that we fund as a community. In other words, you can trust that the MWPA is doing its utmost to carry out the work with ecologically sound practices. We could do the slide now, please. As you can see, you can just read this. This is what I was just saying. Builds trust. And that is crucial. If you want people to follow your advice, they must trust you. And the way they can trust you is to know that you care about their circumstances at home, about their houses, about their gardens, and about their lawns, and that the fire prevention work is going to be taking this deeply into account. And then the ESP partnership is providing our defensible space inspectors with information and training that they in turn pass on to you so that you could use them in making informed decisions that will protect the environment while at the same time making your home safer. And that's a really important function. And we want you to have confidence in the home inspectors, and they want to have confidence in you, that you'll take their advice seriously. And then ESP, together with other organizations, helps bring people together, as John was talking about with the Firewise community, of which I am a member, by the way, in my neighborhood, and am glad to be so. Bring people together to do something about reducing your climate footprint and lowering bills and strengthening communities and preparing for emergencies. And ESP is an evolving community resource that sets acts as a place for you to bring your questions, raise your concerns, and offer suggestions. And we suggest that you go to the ESP tab on the Fire Safe Marin website. This is part of the solution. And I wanted to say that I'll go back to this because it's really important, as was brought up by John before, that there are others doing this. Resilient Neighborhoods has made great inroads into working in fire safe communities, and they have excellent groups, and it's really worth paying attention. We're going to try to organize one in our community too. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that you can get information about this. You can communicate with us, and there is a tab on the MWPA website on ESP, and here it is. And you can communicate with us, but there are other ways to do it too. I just wanted to be sure that you understood that this was happening, and one of the things that we feel very good about is that this is unusual. What we're doing with the Ecologically Sound Practices work is a model for what other communities, other counties would like to do. And it has been praised by Jason Weber, who is the county fire chief and active in MWA. And he has talked publicly about why this is a model and why this is valuable to him to be able to bring the environmental community into decision making. And he's the envy of other counties. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Belle. Really appreciate that presentation. Got a couple of questions for you. The first one is, you stated there are over 70 members of the group, of the ESP group.
Yeah.
Could you name some of the organizations that are participating?
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah. There's the Marin Conservation League, the Native Plant Society, UC Master Gardeners, One TAM, Marin Audubon, UC Cooperative Extension, Environmental Action Committee of West Marin, Sustainable San Rafael, OFA Marin, and I could name others. But these are not the governmental agencies. There are other governmental agencies that are part of it too, but these are the environmental groups.
Well, that's great. I think that really says something about the expertise that exists in this county and working with them. So with all that expertise, how are those people going to enhance our fire preparedness?
Well, to advance our fire readiness, well, the ESP membership shows how engaged the whole climate community is to fire mitigation. That's one thing. So it builds financial and political appeal because they already voted over 72% for Measure C, which provides funding, which shows that they really are serious at solving these problems and making sure the environment is protected at the same time. It builds trust in fire prevention work and willingness to follow instructions, and it extends the realms of solutions to fire problems. And as I said before, it is a model for other communities facing climate crises.
Great, thank you. Well, as we all know, in order to reduce the fire risk, one thing we have to do certainly is reduce the amount of flammable vegetation we have in the county, which is going to, that flammable vegetation is often called biomass.
Yes.
You have a study on that. Can you say a little bit more about that and whether or not the results of that will be available to the public?
Yes, it is a study that was endorsed by the Drawdown Marin, which is a climate campaign of the county. There is a team that is working actively in coming up with a study proposal, which we will attempt to get funded. And it will do things that need to be done here. First of all, look at the biomass everywhere. When you looked at John's videos, what did you see in people's yards? Biomass. I mean, biomass means organic debris, basically. And there it all was. And that's not the only debris there is, because it's also in other parts of Marin that are not part of this, the MWPA. So one is to get a handle on what it is and where it is and what streams there are and what makes it up. So they'll be doing an inventory of biomass for Marin County. And then we'll be doing a feasibility study of ways of converting it. And then an optimization study on how we can convert, how we can convert the biomass in ways that are responsive to emissions reduction and emissions reduction and carbon sequestration. So those are mighty goals that we have, and we're working on it, and I think we'll come up with it soon. But one way people can understand more about it, if they're interested, is we are now in the Carbon Committee, we have guests coming, expert guests, to talk about different aspects. We have somebody who informed us about biochar, about composting, and those are available to the public. So if anybody is interested in aspects of biomass and they don't know how to find out more about it, just email us. And you can also find our website for us on the MWPA website, ESP, but you could just email us at our regular email address.
Thanks, Belle. Another question is, we heard quite a bit in earlier webinars about the fact that climate change is a big contributor to all the fire risk and events that we're seeing here right now. And in order to reduce some of that impact, we're going to have to make some changes in how energy is generated, renewable energy, and so forth. But what would be the impact of that on jobs and other parts of it if we have to make these big changes?
Well, we see that what's being looked at now, since one of the big issues nationally and the state has always been a big issue in the state, is how to confront climate change and how to get the emissions down. And so that you can just look at alternative sources of energy. You look at wind and solar, and you find that the prices have gone down. The numbers of people who are employed there had gone way up. In fact, these are the two largest categories of jobs available these days. So just by investing in new technology, electrifying everything, and following the procedures we're developing right here with our ESP and what you're developing and Fire Safe Marin, means you need more people, and that these are good paying jobs, and they're sprouting up in universities, campuses as majors, and people want to do these jobs. And if you look at some of the plans coming out from the House of Representatives on climate crisis and the Senate on climate crisis, and the candidates on climate crisis, you see extraordinary plans of lots of investment, and a lot of it is in job creation and infrastructure, which will bring about the jobs necessary to get it done.
Great, wonderful. Well, thanks, Belle. We're kind of out of time for questions, although we will have an overtime, so to speak, where we can have a group discussion, take a few more. What I'd like to do right now, Jen, if you could bring up the last slide, is talk about what we can all do right now. So from what you heard tonight, certainly a really good starting point is talking to your neighbors about fire safety. Reach over the fence, say hello, what are we all doing? Because I think there's no doubt that we're all concerned about it. The second thing is start a Firewise site. I think the experience that you got from the several guests that we had that gave their own experiences with starting that shows it's something you can all do. And then you're going to have people like John there to help you and lead you through the process. And then that process will lead you to find out who actually needs help in your neighborhood. And as you saw from our opening video, sometimes just being aware that that person is there. If a bad experience comes up, we have to evacuate or something, you maybe just give a knock on the door and you saw how easy it is. They can jump in the car with you and it makes all the difference in the world. And the last thing is you're hearing from Belle, we know we have to make significant changes to make all of our communities more fire safe. But at the same time, we're not going to go out there and just clear cut everything. That's not why we live here. That's not why we value things. We all value our environment. So we want to make smart environmental decisions when we're creating our smart landscaping. And that's why we're fortunate to have a group like ESP to help guide us on that and give us a good direction so that we're all making good decisions around that. With that, I hope some of you will stay, if not all of you. We're going to take some more questions and we'll go into kind of a chat format here. If you have to leave, thank you very much. But that said, let's see if we can bring everybody back on as kind of a group, and I'll throw out a few more questions here. All right. Okay, we have one more person to welcome who you have not seen, Kathleen Cutter, who you saw in some of our earlier videos are out there. Kathleen, I don't think your video is coming through yet, so you might want to check.
Yep, it's not there yet. I'm.
All right.
There we are.
All right. So she was our, Kathleen was our star in our first video out there in her real job as a Firewise liaison, doing just what you saw there, going out in the community and speaking with people. And then I think she did a great job asking questions of the people that she's working with on a daily basis and got some very good answers from that. So welcome everybody. So before we go too much into some questions, something that came up from a couple of people is we have mentioned the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority a couple of times here. Let's talk just a little bit about what that is all about. Belle, you mentioned that it came about because of a ballot measure. How did that all work and what did that lead to?
Yes, there was, I think stemming from, there was a grand jury report. There were about 3 or 4 precedents, things that interested the Board of Supervisors, interested the community about Marin doing something very different to organize the 17 jurisdictions that comprise the county because they needed coordination. And so then there were the big fires in 2017 and 18. And so then a ballot measure was, I'm not going to go into the history exactly of it, but it was formulated and it had to be approved by all 17. Well, actually there were 19, had to be approved by all these jurisdictions. And it was only 2, Tiburon and Belvedere didn't, but everybody else did. And so and then it had to go on the ballot. And as a joint power agreement, you know, it's complicated. They had to create a board of directors, an operations committee, a technical advisory committee. They had it all set up and how it's going to be funded and the sources of funding. They had that and it made it through. That was good. And guess what? This summer it got created and it exists. The board of directors meets on a regular basis. They're all 17 of them. And if you think that's easy to manage, a board of directors of 17 people. And then but then it seems to be working. It's coming through and then your programs are getting supported and getting carried out. And ESP is working with them to see how we can apply our capabilities and our direction to the priority programs that they have. So there was a history to it and it's created and it's pretty exciting to see it formulate and develop. And it's actually meeting its deadlines. You know, pretty soon it will be able to fund its own programs because I think that starts in January, doesn't it? That funding comes through.
So related to that, just a little bit, one of the beauties of the program really is this is raising $20 million for prevention. This is not fire suppression. And that's really a lot of money for Marin County, and that makes a big difference.
Yes.
So you're seeing community groups that wanted to clear a defensible space around the area they live in, or a chipper program for backyards and whatnot. All those kinds of activities are being funded. John, you've been with FireSafe Marin for a while now. What has been the impact of MWPA on FireSafe Marin and its ability to carry out educational programs and so forth?
Well, I would say, Rich, and you probably know as well as I do, that our education program is very robust. This is part of it, actually. These sorts of webinars did not exist before MWPA. We're printing literature, our door hanger programs, our Red Flag Day signage. I can go on and on with the projects. We have 19 different projects at FireSafe Marin alone that we can attribute directly to support and funding by the MWPA. It just made a huge difference in what we're doing and how we're able to reach out to the community and support fire prevention and mitigation measures.
And Kathleen, you're running the MWPA chipper program through FireSafe Marin, and you're out there talking to people and working with people in these communities all the time. What's the community response, and how is that helping to get neighbors helping neighbor and organization and so forth?
Well, the chipper program, that's another huge program that was enabled by the MWPA funds. We started in July, beginning of July, and we will be chipping through basically Thanksgiving, which is fabulous. It's countywide from Novato to Mill Valley, out to West Marin, and is just everywhere throughout Marin. It's wonderful because a lot of communities, it's not just the Firewise communities that have gotten the benefit of the program. Some jurisdictions, each of the 17 jurisdictions do get days as well. But what's so wonderful about it is people are coming together to help that neighbor that cannot help themselves for whatever reason, financially, or they just are not able to physically do the work themselves for whatever reason. And people are coming together to do work parties, to bring the material to the side of to the curbside, and we come along in our chipper truck and we chip it on site and deliver. Sometimes mostly we take the chips out, but even parts of Marin where they do want weed suppression, we dump the chips at places that are designated by the jurisdictions or wherever. So it's even returning some of the chips back into the community. It's building community by people doing work projects. It's other projects that might not have, the other thing that we've been able to do is projects that have been started by the CHAM crew, but they had to go out to fight fires. We've been able to come in and chip those piles so they're not waiting around for the TAM crew to get back from firefighting. So it's wonderful that we can pick up these little jobs all around and help out people who otherwise probably wouldn't get around to doing this, because it is expensive not only to hire the crews or to do the work yourself, but to actually remove the vegetation. So people are really thankful. We get a lot of feedback saying thank you for making our community safer, because otherwise they wouldn't have done it. So that's the big thing.
Great. So one person's kind of asking about maintenance, and I think one of the beauties of this program is this is not a one-time funding program. So this is a 10-year program, hopefully be renewed after that. But the chipper days and all of the vegetation management work that's going on, I don't think it's going to be going away. Does anybody else? John?
Rich, just to add to that, the support that MWPA is giving to the Firewise program, Firewise is not a flash in the pan. You start a Firewise site, it goes on for quite a while because grass grows every year. There's always maintenance is a big part of Firewise and what Firewise does.
Thanks, John. And Belle, I know that you've had some very interesting presentations done as part of ESP, and I know you have some more coming down the road. You want to talk about a couple of those and how you think they can help us to get better prepared?
Yeah, I do, because the committee said we need to be educated on these subjects, because we need to know in depth a lot more about them. So coming up, let's see, last time we had biopower, which was really very interesting. It's about this is really about biomass, about organic material being used for electric power. And we had a representative at the state level who talked to us about the different projects, the different problems that they faced. And then we had one person talking to us about agriculture and the implications of a fire community having to do with retaining carbon in the soil. And now we're going to have a speaker on let's see, prescribed burning. We're going to have a speaker on developing wood product technologies, on maintaining the forest. So we have speakers lined up, and we're going to put them out in advance. And if people are interested, they certainly can let us know, and we can invite them to these occasions. But these are people who speak, who are the leading authorities on those subjects in Marin, and it's invaluable.
Oh, that's great. Good news. And another thing there's a question about native plants. So is that the type of thing that your group would discuss, pros and cons, and how that all works and whatnot?
Oh yeah, native plants. That's part of the. So we have specialists on native plants. We have specialists, and the need to preserve native plants, and the need to understand the risks of native plants to different types of fire scenarios. And so it's the preservation of native plants has been an important goal.
Thanks. John, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, with native plants, actually, to answer Catherine's question, yes, I totally agree with her that many native plants are, behave in such a way that they dry out and become fire hazards later on in the year. But there are also many native plants that are perennials and that are adapted to the native soil flora, so that actually hydration of native plants is much easier because of that adaptation there with the soil microbiology. So there are many native plants, and as Bill mentioned, there's specialists in this field that can prescribe natives to fill the void for fire smart landscaping.
Great. Well, maybe one last question. I think there's some benefits to becoming a Firewise community that go over and above just the general things. And I know, Kathleen, you're kind of working with Firewise communities to pilot a red flag project or something. How's that work?
So one thing that we're doing is we are distributing red flag signage, and this signage has been developed that is uniform for across Marin County. So if you see it in Novato, it's the same sign as you'll see in Mill Valley. So it will everybody will recognize it and know what it means. And the wonderful thing that the Firewise sites, many have agreed to do, is it's a pilot program. So we're offering these signs to a Firewise site specifically. And what they will do is post them at key entry and exit points to their neighborhood. And they will agree to put them up and down when the red flag warning has been issued. And the wonderful thing about that is it just makes everybody aware, not only for the Firewise sites, but it helps a local community that might be driving by. So this is a great way to, again, foster community and responsibility and taking care of one another and benefiting the larger community as a whole. So it's another wonderful way, I think, that Fire Safe Marin has helped with MWPA funds to really support the Firewise sites, foster the community spirit, and get some good messaging out there.
Great. Well, that's kind of a positive way to wrap up with community organizing. We saw from the beginning, neighbor helping neighbor. I think we all get to see the point of that. We heard from people who are really doing that all the time. And I think the Firewise program is just a great way to make all that happen. We're here at Fire Safe Marin to help you. Your local fire department is. And then, of course, on top of all of this, we're lucky to live in Marin County, where we have these tremendous environmental resources that help make sure we undertake all these actions in an environmentally sensitive way. So with that, I thank all of our panelists very much here tonight. And I really want to thank the audience for having stayed along with us. I know there was a lot of competition with the debate and so forth tonight, but thank you for staying there. And we hope you'll join us next month for another exciting webinar. With that, we'll say goodnight to everybody.